90 and free. The 6 things that helped me age with dignity. There's something no one tells you about living to 90. It's not the wrinkles, the hearing aids, or the quiet afternoons. It's the moment you realize you can't even pour yourself a glass of water without someone's help. I was 78 when that moment came. That morning I had just gotten out of bed when I felt dizzy. My vision went black and I collapsed right there in the kitchen. I was fully conscious, but I couldn't get up. I lay there for 3 hours. No one knew. No one came. That fall didn't break any bones, but it shattered an illusion I'd been holding on to. The illusion that I'm still doing fine. The truth is, living a long life means very little if you can't take care of yourself. My name is Walter. I'm 90 years old. I live alone. I still cook my own meals, make my bed every morning, and walk to the park every week. But it's not because I'm lucky. It's because after that fall, I changed 5 things in my life. 5 simple things that gave me back my independence. If you're in your 60s, or if someone you love is getting older by the day, please stay with me until the end of this video, because one thing you learn today could help you stay free and independent for another 10 years. And if you're looking for honest, practical advice from someone who's actually lived past 90, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. I'll be here every week walking this journey with you. 1. Independence doesn't begin with willpower. It begins with basic physical ability. You think you're still doing fine because you can go grocery shopping, cook your own meals, climb a few steps. I used to think the same. Until one morning, I bent down to pick up a towel that had fallen on the bathroom floor, and I couldn't stand back up. It didn't hurt. Nothing was injured. It was just my legs no longer had the strength to lift my body. I struggled for over 15 minutes, bracing against the sink, pushing off the wall, until I finally had to crawl into the living room and pull myself up using the couch. I was 80 at the time, but I felt like I was 100. Turns out the problem wasn't my age. It was that I had lost the most important thing, control over my own body. At 60, you may still move around just fine. But if you're not maintaining muscle strength, especially in your legs, hips, and lower back, you could be quietly heading toward a future where independence slips away. According to Harvard Health, just 1 year of inactivity can cause adults over 65 to lose up to 8% of their muscle mass. And once your muscles weaken, simple things like getting up from a chair or balancing while changing clothes can become dangerous. A fall isn't a matter of if, it's when. I once asked a physical therapist, "How can I tell if I'm still strong enough to live independently?" He didn't use any fancy equipment. He just said, "Stand up from a chair without using your hands." I tried, and I couldn't. You can try it too right now. Sit in a chair. Don't use your arms. Just push up using your legs and lower back. If you feel shaky or have to strain too much, that's your first sign. Your body may be starting to give up on independence. So what did I do? I started with something very small. Every morning before getting out of bed, I did 3 simple leg stretches for 2 minutes. Then I sat up slowly and stood up without holding on to anything, even if it took 3 tries some mornings. Within just 2 weeks, I noticed a real difference. I stood steadier, no more dizziness, and most importantly, I began to feel confident again. You see, independence doesn't begin with determination. It begins with your legs every morning. And then, There's something even more dangerous than weak muscles, the feeling that no one needs you anymore. I'll share more about that in the next part. Have you ever found yourself unable to get up from the floor? Leave a comment below. I truly want to know where you are in this journey. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to follow the channel. I still have so much more to share from real life lived day by day. 2. Waking up each day is the real test of freedom in old age. Most people think the day starts when you get out of bed. I don't. I believe the day truly begins when you can stand up on your own without falling. And I nearly failed that test. When I was 82, one morning started like any other. I woke up, sat up in bed, and put my feet on the floor. But the moment I stood up, the room began to spin. My vision blurred, my ears rang, and I collapsed to the ground. It wasn't the first time I'd felt lightheaded, but it was the first time I realized if that fall had happened in the bathroom, I might never have made it out. It sounds serious, but this kind of thing is incredibly common for people over 60. When you're young, your body easily handles position changes, lying down, sitting, standing. But as we age, our blood vessels and heart don't adjust as quickly. That leads to something called postural hypotension, a drop in blood pressure when you change position, which causes dizziness and sudden falls. According to Mayo Clinic, this affects nearly 30% of people over 70. But the scariest part is most don't even know they have it. We rush out of bed, head straight to the bathroom, hurry into the kitchen to make coffee, never realizing we're forcing our body to do something it's no longer ready for. I used to think it was no big deal, until I fell and spent 3 months in physical therapy just to regain my balance. Since that day, I created a simple morning ritual as a way to show respect to my aging body. As soon as I wake up, I lie still for 10 seconds, focusing on my breath. Then I bend my knees, gently roll my wrists, and wiggle my feet. Only after that do I slowly sit up and find my balance. And I don't leave the bed until I feel fully steady. It may sound simple, but you'd be surprised. Just 30 seconds of this each morning has helped me avoid so many preventable falls. If you've ever felt dizzy when getting out of bed, or if you have to grab onto something just to take your first few steps, don't ignore it. Because no one loses their independence from one fall. They lose it when they can't get back up after that fall. And sometimes what really causes dependence isn't weak legs, it's the mindset that says, my kids will take care of me. I used to think that way until that very thought nearly cost me my ability to decide for myself. I'll tell you more about that in the next part. Have you ever felt lightheaded getting out of bed? Or watched a loved one fall just because they moved too quickly? Please share your story in the comments. I read every single one. 3. No one takes better care of you than the version of you from yesterday. I know it might sound strange, but I truly believe this. Your children can't take care of you better than you if you're willing to prepare early. I used to think, when I get old and frail, I'll lean on my daughter. She loves me, she'll take good care of me. And it's true, my daughter does love me. But her life, busy, fast-paced, isn't always able to prioritize the little things I need. There was a time I asked her to schedule a doctor's appointment for me. She said, I got it, Dad. I won't forget. Then work took over, days turned into weeks, and no one called. I didn't bring it up again. By the time I finally got checked, the condition had gotten worse. Did I blame her? No, I blamed myself for handing over my independence to someone else. Seniors are often labeled as dependent. But the truth is, sometimes we make ourselves dependent by stopping the management of our own lives. While your mind is still clear, create what I call an independence journal. I call mine the Living Alone book. Inside, I've written down a list of all the medications I take, phone numbers for my doctor, trusted neighbors, and the local pharmacy, notes on how to use my medical devices, and even simple reminders: drink 64 ounces of water a day, walk 20 minutes, rest my eyes every hour while reading. Don't wait until pain, confusion, or loss of control forces you to start remembering what matters. By then, you've already become dependent. I don't write these things down to control myself. I write them down to protect my right to remain in charge of my own life. But there's something even harder to hold on to than good health. It's the feeling that you still matter. When your mind starts to believe, I don't have anything left to contribute, that's when true dependence begins. I'll talk more about that in the next part. Have you created your own Living Alone book? If not, try writing just one page today. And if you'd like some ideas, leave a comment. I'd be happy to share what I've written over the past 10 years. For a dependent mind is the most dangerous kind of prison. People often say old age is when the body begins to weaken, but I believe old age truly begins when you start believing you have nothing left to do. When I was 85, I went through a period where I couldn't sleep well. I lost my appetite. I didn't want to talk to anyone, not because I was sick, but because I felt useless. My children were busy. My friends had slowly passed away. My neighbors had just moved. I was living alone in a familiar house, but it felt like I was trapped inside an invisible box. Physically, I could still walk around, but mentally, I felt locked inside a dark room with no windows. I used to leave the TV on all day just to hear another human voice. I would let the fridge sit empty because I couldn't find a reason to cook for one. And I would sit for hours staring out the window, hoping someone might stop by. But no one came. Until one day, I read a sentence in an old newspaper: "You are not useless until you believe you are." I folded the paper, stood up, and did one simple thing. I made myself a cup of tea. Not because I was thirsty, but because I wanted to do something for myself. From that day on, I began to rebuild a gentle rhythm of living kindly with myself, making my bed each morning, picking out my own clothes to wear to the park, writing down things I know, experiences I thought someone younger might someday need. No one told me to do these things. No one praised me for doing them. But each small act slowly gave me back the feeling that I was still truly alive. Mental dependence is sometimes more dangerous than illness, because when your mind gives up, your body soon follows, and you know something. One of the quietest things that weakens your body day by day after 60 is how you eat. I made that mistake for years, and I only realized it when my hands started shaking simply because I no longer had enough muscle to grip. I'll tell you more about that in the next part. Have you ever felt like you're no longer useful? If so, share your story. Not because I'm an expert, but because I've been there too. 5. Eating in old age isn't just about living longer, it's about staying on your feet. When I was young, I ate to feel full. In middle age, I ate to stay healthy. But after turning 70, I realized eating just to stay alive wasn't enough anymore. I had to eat so I could keep standing, walking, and caring for myself. It may sound odd, but I mean it. At 83, I found myself unable to open a jar of jam. Not because the lid was too tight, but because my hands no longer had the strength to grip, twist, and balance all at once. I looked down at my fingers, thin, slightly trembling, weaker than I'd ever imagined. It wasn't painful, I wasn't sick, but it was clear I didn't have enough strength left. I went to see a doctor. He told me there was nothing seriously wrong, just muscle loss, something that happens to most older adults when they don't get enough protein. I was stunned. For years, I'd taken pride in eating healthy, less meat, low-fat, small portions for easy digestion. But those same healthy meals had been quietly stealing away my independence. According to Mayo Clinic, adults over 65 need at least 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. If you weigh around 150 pounds, that's about 68 kilos, you need over 80 grams of protein daily. One egg has only 6 grams. A glass of milk, just 8. I realized I'd been falling short by nearly half, and I'd been paying the price with a body that was slowly growing weaker. Since then, I completely changed my breakfast. Now, every morning I eat 2 hard-boiled eggs, a slice of whole grain bread, a glass of unsweetened milk, and a small handful of walnuts or peanuts. Not to look strong, not to live longer, but so I can still pour myself a cup of tea, open my pill bottle, and pull a chair out onto the patio to read every afternoon. For me, eating isn't about taste or trends anymore. It's how I protect my freedom in the smallest, most important ways. We talk so much about longevity, but if we're alive and can't control our own movements, our own meals, what is that longevity really worth? Don't wait until your body starts begging you for help to pay attention to what you eat, because no one else, not even your doctor or your children, can help you stay standing through the changes of aging. Only you can do that. And you know what? There's one last thing. Even if you eat right exercise regularly and prepare everything in advance, if you overlook this one final piece, you could still lose control of your own aging. That piece is choice. We'll talk about it one last time in the final part. 6. True freedom is having the power to choose right up to the very end. I've lived to be 90. And if you asked me what mattered most throughout this long journey, I wouldn't say health, money, or even longevity. I would say something far simpler: the ability to choose. When you're young, you have hundreds of choices every day. What to do, what to eat, where to go, who to talk to. But after 70, I've seen many people begin to lose those choices quietly, one by one. They stop eating what they love because the doctor said to avoid it. They don't travel because they're afraid of falling. They no longer live alone because their children said a nursing home would be safer. Slowly, they stop deciding for themselves and just live according to what others think is best for them. I'm not denying that there are times when we need help, but I truly believe this: as long as you can choose, you are still alive. Every time I pick out my favorite shirt, decide when to eat breakfast, or simply choose to walk around the park instead of staying indoors, I feel like I'm still truly living. One time, a young relative came to visit and was surprised to see me still cooking for myself. He asked Grandpa, "Why go through all that trouble? I can order food for you every day." I looked at him and smiled. "It's not trouble," I said. "I cook because I enjoy seasoning my own food." The day I can't do it anymore, I'll ask for your help. But today I still can choose. And that's something I treasure. You see, true freedom doesn't have to be anything grand. You don't need to travel the world or do something spectacular. Sometimes it's as simple as choosing to sip your tea in peace, rather than being told, "Hurry up, it's time to take your pills." That alone is a dignified way to live. I don't wish to live to 100, but I do hope that however long I live, I'll still have the strength to choose how I live gently, simply, and in my own way. And I hope you will have that too. Final thoughts. When I was younger, I used to believe that aging meant accepting things, accepting weakness, accepting the need for help, accepting that little by little life would slip from my hands. But now, looking back after 90 years of living, I realize aging doesn't have to be a sentence if we start preparing early and choose to live differently. It took me nearly 20 years to learn this lesson. But you don't have to take that long. All it takes is 2 minutes each morning to gently wake up your body with a few small movements. Just one egg or a glass of milk added to each meal. 1 hour a week to write down the things you still want to do for yourself and hold on to them like a promise you've made to no one but you. Freedom doesn't come from never needing help. Freedom comes from still being in charge of your own life. I'm not saying all this to be admired. I'm sharing it because I've been where you might be right now, uncertain, tired, and afraid of becoming a burden. And I believe you can choose a different way to live. I hope that when this video ends, you'll do one small thing just for yourself. Try standing up from a chair without using your hands. Drink a warm glass of water after waking up. Or write down 3 things you still want to be able to do, whether you're 80 or 90. Because in the end, dignity isn't measured by how long we live, but by how we choose to live the years we have left. And now I want to ask you something from the heart. If you could choose just one thing to protect your independence in old age, what would you choose? Please share it in the comments below. I truly want to hear your answer, because you never know, your words might inspire someone else who really needs it right now. If what I shared today meant something to you or to someone you love, feel free to follow this channel. No bells, no pressure. Just an open invitation to walk this journey with me toward a life of independence, peace, and meaning after 60. And if you'd like to support this journey in any way, even just with a kind message or a small donation, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. See you in the next video.